All right, what's going on, guys? This is Slightly Educational Podcast. I'm Seth.
I'm Gabe.
And let's get started. So we're going to start with some feedback from the last podcast and some updates on some current events we're following. So, Gabe, do you want to talk about the new development in the presidential election?
Yeah, so
2020?
Bernie Sanders announced his candidacy, which I wasn't expecting. He wouldn't have run, basically, if he didn't think... I don't think if he would have run if he didn't think Elizabeth Warren could take the nomination. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that he obviously knows what he's doing. And now the difference between now and 2016 is that, one, he has a lot more name recognition than he did last time. But also, it's a lot more crowded field than last time. Mm-hmm. Obviously, now it's not him running against Hillary Clinton. It's him running against all these other people, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Christian Gillibrand. The
only concern I have with Bernie is I feel like a big reason that John McCain lost, or at least something that I know Republicans have blamed, that why they didn't vote for John McCain in the 2008 election is that he was so old and they didn't want Sarah Palin to become president if he died. I think that's like a realistic concern in not wanting to vote for Bernie Sanders. It's just like he's getting up there.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders isn't going to pick someone like crazy to be his vice president, especially him. He's going to pick someone, I don't know about necessarily safe, but like he'll pick someone like people would like. Mm-hmm. But there is a concern with age, and he is old. He is getting old too. But the guy in front of him, the only guy beating him in the polls, he's like ahead in all the polls in all the states. The only guy beating him is Joe Biden, who's a year younger than he is.
Yeah, you're right.
So I mean, if the Democrats want to stop Bernie, they have to they're gonna have to run like Joe Biden or someone. Bernie Sanders has answered this question a ton of times because obviously everyone's asking him, "Oh, Bernie, you're so old." So in his response is that you vote based on what you think of the candidate, so not what you think of like how old he is. Mm-hmm. So I see where he's coming from. It's like you vote based on the fact that whatever policy he can implement while he's alive. And arguably there have been presidents in worse health than Bernie Sanders. Yeah, like FDR was reelected like 3 times and he had polio. So. Yeah. But I mean, obviously, it was less publicized, and people didn't really know he had polio. Obviously, everyone knows how old Bernie is. Yeah.
So, another thing I think would be smart for Bernie in his campaign is, in the last election, Trump, kind of more like, not radical Republican, but just radical in general, picked someone more to like, still very conservative, but more to like a base. Yeah. I think Bernie, do you think he'd go and pick someone that shares his more, because he's very far to the left. Yeah. I think he'd have to go pick someone more towards the center. I mean, as a running mate. The
thing is, Bernie's been pretty successful. I mean, if you look at it now, all these candidates running in the Democratic field are a lot. I guess I don't know if a lot, but they are clearly further left than Hillary Clinton was back in 2008, or any of the other Democrats were in 2016. So he's been pretty successful. Like they're all pushing Medicare for all. A lot of them want $15 minimum wage. So the Democratic Party of 2020 is going to be different than the Democratic Party of 2016. Yeah. And especially if he nominates a vice president, I guess, before he wins the primary, like what Ted Cruz did, he might have to lean harder to the left base because obviously like he's running against other moderates like Kamala Harris or other people. So he's going to have to distinguish himself from the other candidates, especially with the amount of candidates there are in the race.
Yeah, for sure. But he does have, like you say, a lot of name recognition. Yeah. Because he did gain a large following. And he's been pretty, like, as a senator, he's been pretty outspoken, too, in the Senate. And done a good job of keeping himself relevant.
He's, like, the most popular politician besides, like, Obama, who's obviously not a politician anymore right now. But yeah.
All right, so in the next update we had is we were talking about the tobacco law in Virginia. And so it's finalized July 1st of this year. The age to buy tobacco and nicotine products in Virginia will be raised to 21, except all people that are already 18 are grandfathered in.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when will you turn 18?
Oh, no, I'm not 18 until August.
Until August? Oh, you're just going to miss it. Yeah. But, I'll be able to buy it. And I'll be able to buy nicotine, tobacco, and active military personnel. I guguess their way of defending, like, well, if I can go to war, yeah.
I mean, I guess the point is, the point of passing this law was to stop like youth from vaping or smoking cigarettes if anyone still does that, like as in high school. But it seems more like just an excuse to just pass a law and pretend they're doing something when really the problem's not going to fix itself. It's not going to change anything.
Yeah, it could have like a slight hindrance. Obviously, we weren't alive when the age to drink got moved up, so we couldn't really see the difference in how many like underage people are drinking. If that was the purpose. But I
mean, it's interesting that this passed in Virginia because Virginia has historically been like dominated by the tobacco industries. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think that the reason why obviously the tobacco industry supported it. If they didn't, I don't think this would have passed.
Yeah, for sure.
So because the large tobacco companies they're selling cigarettes, and the guys who aren't buying cigarettes aren't 18.
They're shifting though.
Yeah,
Philip Morris is they're making like a big switch. Like they're reallocating a lot of their funds towards the vaping department.
Yeah, but I mean, as of right now,
vaping department.
As of right now, 18 to 21-year-olds really aren't smoking cigarettes, which is really what the tobacco companies are making right now. So they can push for this law, and then they can start pretending that they're actually trying to make a difference with like youth and smoking and nicotine addiction. But I mean, really, it's not going to change that.
Do you think they'd ever pass that federally? Do you think it's
21 like across the nation? I mean,
do you think it's a big enough deal to like get passed federally?
I mean, if a state like states like New Jersey and Virginia are doing it, these aren't like states that I would assume would pass laws restricting legal use of drugs. Mm-hmm. So I mean, if places like New Jersey and Virginia could do it, I could definitely see a federal ban or a federal like age rates like they did with alcohol, as we were saying. But that could definitely happen. But I could see people bringing up the argument like, oh, I can vote at 18, I can join the military at 18. Mm-hmm. So they shouldn't be able to government should be telling me what I can.
So maybe they should exempt active voters too. If active military personnel
registered to vote.
Yeah.
I think one of the arguments with alcohol though is that it really did affect your brain, especially if you're younger. So like waiting till you were 21. There's like a clear impact on your brain, which I don't think nicotine has as much as alcohol does.
I don't even feel like I know. Like, we hear so much about cigarettes and how they cause, like, or not hear some, like, see the evidence about how cigarettes and how they cause lung cancer and can kill people. But I feel like there's a lot more confirmed science in that with, like, just nicotine and juuling, you know? As, like, juuling's the big one, but any, like, the vaping products, I feel like, I'm not saying it's good for you. I'm not saying it's worse than cigarettes. But I feel like that's a big gray area. Maybe there's a lot we don't know. You know
but I mean, it could be just because health class haven't updated to talk about juuling, and also these companies probably already know, and they're probably hiding it. And then 20 years down the line, we'll find out this thing has been really killing us all the time.
Yeah. But, do you think how when you buy like chips or like soup or something, there's like the label of ingredients on it? Do you think they'll ever have that for Juul Pod?
They might, or they could just go straight up with pictures of lung cancer like they do for in Australia. It's crazy.
Yeah, we just need to keep passing out more and more stickers. I'm no fool. So the topic of today is automation and basically just the growth of technology in the new age and like the impact in the long term and the short term that we think it's going to have. So I'll start off. I want to talk about like a current thing that I think will have a pretty like a big impact very quickly, and that's self-driving cars. I think you see it in like so many people are employed as like cab drivers, Uber drivers, pizza delivery drivers. I think, and it's like going like you see all these concept models like Toyota. Have you seen some of the Toyota concept models?
I haven't seen any of the Toyota ones. No.
Yeah, Toyota. That's I just went the other night and actually binged like Toyota concept models, but they're basically releasing a lot of concepts that are self-driving cars, very like high tech, very like futuristic-y looking cars.
Course,
yeah. And you're seeing it with like the Domino's, those like pizza delivery trucks. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I saw one in like I think it was Canada too. It was like a self-driving like shuttle for like Olympic Village or something.
So I think that is gonna have like a big impact on people because you can't really because Lyft can just create themselves. Uber can just create themselves like the bunch of like cheap self-driving cars to get people from place to place. And on the one hand, it may like prevent like car accidents, help save the environment, but on the other hand, like all those people that are employed as drivers are gonna
obviously lose their job. Well, to go on your environment point, I always hear people saying like how self-driving cars are going to be the solution to traffic or the solution to whatever all our congestion problems because the car can react perfectly on time when the light turns green, and they're never going to like or rarely hit a car stopping traffic. No one's going to rubberneck in a self-driving car. But the thing is that self-driving cars take up the same amount of space on the road as normal cars do.
Yeah.
And the people are still going to drive. Even if like people's dreams of no one owning a car, and then everything is like ride sharing, so cars are never sitting idle. Because like for most of the time, that's people own a car, it's just sitting in a parking lot. So people think that in the future,
or on like the side of the road.
Oh yeah,
in
the side of the
big
road.
cities, you can make it like a 2-lane street if you take off like a.
Yeah, so people think that we'll have like companies like Uber and Lyft just operating perpetually moving cars that can pick up people and drop off people, and it'll never have people are never gonna own cars. And it's more, that's like a dream for like some like upper middle class suburban family, like never in the car. Most, I mean,
like wanting to be like the Jetsons.
It's not gonna solve traffic. You're only gonna solve traffic is like investing more in public infrastructure like trains and buses, and you can have trains can already drive themselves because they only go straight. But you can have self-driving buses, and it's a good thing. And don't get me wrong, self-driving cars are a good thing. They get in accidents less. I mean, there have been like a couple deaths, but in the grand scheme of things, the miles they've driven compared to human drivers, and even if they were slightly better than human drivers, like slightly better is better than not better. But addressing the concern, I guess, of people going out of work, it is a large concern. There are like, I think transportation is one of the largest employer sectors, so I mean, one of the I guess solutions to it, or quote unquote solutions, is you heard of universal basic income? So that's basically like where every month people would get like a stipend from the government just to like give them money to spend in the market, because what's going to happen after automation, so beyond just like self-driving cars, but like automating like self-checkout lanes in grocery stores, right, getting grocery clerks out, or automatic factory workers, right, people are going to start going out of business more and more. And then people aren't going to have money to spend, and then companies aren't going to have money coming in. So it's like an endless cycle of people getting laid off, investing more in automation. So what UBI for short, basically Universal Basic Income, is trying to solve the problem by reinvesting money in the economy by giving people like every month like $1,000 or $5,000. So I think some countries like Finland or something, they're trying it right now. They're basically like giving out money just to keep people above the poverty line, so like $1,000 a month. And they can use that money to just do for whatever. So it's basically like they won't get stuck doing nothing. They'll have some money, and you don't have to be unemployed to get it. UBI is supposed to be universal, as it says. So everyone gets $1,000, $5,000, whatever, to do whatever. They can go to school, so they can get better jobs with not taking my automation, stuff like that. And then that's actually one of the campaign platforms of one of the Democratic candidates, Andrew Yang. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He is running on the platform of automation is a serious problem that we should address, and that we need stuff like UBI to ensure that we aren't caught off guard with this next wave of automation. And the whole premise of UBI basically is that this revolution, if you want to call it that, is different than all the other past ones. Because in the past, people have been worried, like in the Industrial Revolution, people were worried about the fact that they were losing their jobs to factory machines, right? So like the Luddites basically went in and destroyed all the factories in Britain. But then it turned out that they didn't lose all their jobs. And yeah, a lot of artisans, like fine craftsmen, lost their jobs, but they eventually found more work in the factories. So there's an argument basically against automation taking jobs, saying that we've never seen this in history. Like,
it's definitely different.
Yeah.
Because it's not like one machine replacing maybe the work of like a few people in a factory. It's like one machine replacing the work of every single person that works in the factory. Or a collection of machines taking the work. So I think like it's gonna have a pretty big impact on employment. We're gonna see it with drivers. We're gonna see it with a lot of other workers. And did you hear the big worry I have with artificial intelligence and the growth of automation is them growing too much intelligence.
Like a singularity or something.
Yeah, like becoming sentient.
Yeah,
almost. There was 2 Google bots. Did you hear about this?
No, I haven't.
There were 2 Google bots that were they were like chat bots,
Yeah.
But they were built in I'm not the biggest computer guy, but they were like going on like side by side with each other at the same time.
Talking to each other?
Yeah. Well, that's what eventually happened.
Oh, that's okay.
So people were like typing in these words, they were getting fed all this information, all this data, all these different words, and then they just started spitting words out at each other. There was no like rhyme or reason to what they were spitting out, but it was they were just spitting it out at each other. Yeah. And then they were like, fuck this shit, and pulled the plug. And so that's like, and you'll hear Elon Musk talk about it too, about how like their like power is so much greater than that. Like, because one AI, like all of Google is one AI, you know? You know what I mean? Like all the data is going to one place.
Yeah, going to one place. Yeah.
So that like, if something was to become sentient and then have all that information, you know?
Yeah, I mean, this is relying on like an assumption that there's some sort of like singularity we'll reach, and because technology is all exponential and just exponentially grows and eventually go out of control. But I guess the argument against that is that like maybe, but like has technology been like increasing exponentially? Because like computer chips, they have been like halving in size every 2 years, which is Moore's law, but recently they haven't, and because we've been reaching the limit of like how small, like we're reaching the size basically like a transistor reaching the size of atoms. So we're getting too small, like there's nowhere else we can go. And then same with like just technology in general, we are further away from the Apollo mission, like the first moon landing, than the first moon landing was from the Wright brothers flying. So I don't think there's definitely not anything exponential there, because people in 1960 would have thought like, oh man, we'd definitely be like in Mars by now. And right now we're still debating on whether or not the planet's heating up. So we're not going anywhere so far.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a long-term fear. I think in the short term it will be it is beneficial. Automation. Companies will probably be able to generate a lot more revenue. And the tech industry will continue to grow. And that's because a lot of tech companies are based in America.
Yeah.
That's going to be pretty good for the American economy.
Are we assuming that? I mean, yeah, if you're assuming that growing revenue is just for tech companies is what determines how great something's going, because you have massive unemployment, but if these big companies are still rapid.
So you're saying that you think it's going to lead to massive unemployment.
I'm just giving a scenario. I don't know what I believe specifically.
It's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. There's no like, historians like to base stuff on precedent, so historians would argue that it's probably not going to lead to massive unemployment. I personally think, I think this is definitely different than some past revolutions, and we may see a lot of people out of work. But I don't think universal basic income is a good solution, at least as of now. Because the problem with stuff like UBI is that people use it as an excuse to, like, I guess, cut welfare spending and stuff like that. So people might say, oh, we're already giving them like $1,000 a month. Why should we continue sponsoring universal health care? Why should we continue sponsoring any other like government handouts? And you see UBI is pushed a lot by people like Elon Musk, all these tech entrepreneurs pushing UBI, because they know that they can continue making money in a system where people aren't working. So it's kind of a way to prop up another capitalist system in a world where people aren't working and don't have enough money to funnel back into the system. So I mean I don't know how they're going to solve that with UBI. It may eventually work, but
so just going back to the start, with just the state we are now, and in the short term, I want to get back to I expressed my biggest concern is just the unemployment of drivers with the self-driving cars. What's the biggest concern that you have in the short term with the growth of automation, and like where we are at now, looking at more like a 15 to 20 year, maybe like 50 year top, like more this like right now? What do you think the biggest concern is right now?
I mean, I think the biggest concern with
that you have,
yeah, that I have, me personally, is not even with automation in general. It's more specifically with the companies that are running it. And I get I think I have a bigger problem with big tech companies in general. So companies like Facebook, Amazon, Google, and Apple. Because like Facebook has been in the news a ton recently. Just all their surveillance stuff.
No, it's crazy, like the access that they have. Even with Amazon, with like Alexa, that can like allegedly hear everything you're saying. Like
and some of those, I mean, some of those more obvious things aren't even that big a deal. Like Alexa, it listens to you all the time, obviously, to get the keyword, but it doesn't send all that stuff back to Amazon HQ. Like Jeff Bezos isn't going to hear everything you say in your house. But the more important stuff is the stuff that people don't really see, like Facebook's. They recently were pushing a VPN app that it was a VPN, but it also sent all your web data through Facebook servers, and so they could analyze it and give you ads. And it eventually got removed from the App Store, and actually had their like license revoked from Apple for a while. They recently restored it though. But so like Facebook and Google, they're doing stuff that behind the scenes that's less transparent. Like obviously they sell Google Homes and stuff like that, but they're just keeping track of everything you do in your web browser, right? Most people use Google Chrome browser, so they can keep track of anything you do there. And they've recently been hit by fines with the EU for their dominant market position, because they have like monopolies on all this stuff. Like Google owns all the like Android operating system, and then Facebook owns all these social media platforms.
There's not as much like variation in the different companies. I think that is a big concern with them growing out of control and just getting, well, not even like growing in size, but I guess in your saying like you were saying the data that they were getting and like spitting out ads, that is pretty fucking scary, dude. And especially like I think Amazon is the one that's like got the most like fucked up shit going on.
Really? More than Facebook? Really?
Yeah. I think low key, I don't know. I just don't like, there's no like fact backing my opinion on this, but I just
feeling.
Yeah, it's just like a vibe, you know?
I mean, I hear what
that
you're
you
saying.
get from like when you think like what I think the most about Amazon. Have you ever seen the movie WALL-E?
Yeah, I've seen the movie WALL-E.
You know, By and Large.
Yeah, the company that's
By and Large.
Was it By and Large or All in All?
I think it was By and Large. B&L.
Because one of the other movies had All in. They all mean the same thing.
Yeah.
One of the other movies had All in All.
We should do an episode on the Pixar theory.
Oh,
Have
yeah.
you ever read the
I've heard of
Pixar
it. Yeah,
theory?
we can save that for later.
Yeah. But going back to WALL-E is just the company just like growing to a point where they're providing like every service. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's like the whole like too big to fail argument, basically. Like we have to prop them up because if they fail, then we all fail.
And I think Amazon is the company that's by like far the closest to reaching that point.
Yeah, well, are you saying because of their dominance in
Just
online
the
shopping
market and just like the amount they're growing too. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
Amazon's biggest revenue maker is actually their web services. So they host like web servers for companies. I'm pretty sure Netflix runs on Amazon web servers, so anything you watch on Netflix is going through Amazon servers.
and that's what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
so that data then is going back to Amazon.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, yeah, a lot of what this company does, or a lot of what all these tech companies do, is behind the scenes. Most people like don't like Facebook or don't like whatever Amazon might be doing, but they don't realize like people still use Instagram, and that's owned by Facebook, or WhatsApp's owned by Facebook. So people don't really know like what's going on behind the scenes, and a lot of people just really don't care.
Yeah.
Like everyone watched Mark Zuckerberg's trial to Congress, but they didn't go in and delete Facebook or delete Instagram off their phone after that. They don't care. They just like to see it in the news.
Yeah, I think this is a little off topic. I think that's a greater like result of just like social media in a whole.
Yeah, I mean,
and just like
I didn't delete
people
Instagram either.
Yeah. And just people like having such short interest in things like like to stay on topic, like the Mark Zuckerberg thing. Like I'm sure like Facebook maybe took a hit. Like they did. I'm pretty sure last year they had like the biggest drop. Do you remember that?
But
like
in
in
rising
revenue
too,
in one day, just around that. But in value of their stock.
A lot of people don't care or don't even know like what's happening. So a lot of people don't know that Google can just watch whatever they're looking up on their browser, or Facebook knows exactly what you're doing on Instagram or WhatsApp or whatever. So it's a lot of this behind the scenes breach of privacy is what's going on, and that's what laws like in the EU they passed the GDPR, which stands for like General Data Privacy Regulation, just in an attempt to at least put like a leash on these companies and stop them from going wild.
Because there definitely is a limit to the amount of data you can like take from someone, because it becomes a breach of privacy. You know, you couldn't like you couldn't follow, like you could get a restraining order following someone to the grocery store, you know, seeing everything they buy and like marking down everything they buy.
Yeah, but the difference with that is that the guy getting followed in the grocery store didn't sign the license
Terms and agreements. Yeah. So maybe that's just a solution. Everyone needs to read the terms and agreements, because I can tell you, I don't think I've ever read.
Well, they don't write them expecting you to read it. They purposely make it as long as possible so you don't read it.
Yeah, I've tried. I have tried several times to read the terms and agreements.
And that's part of the GDPR is to make the privacy policies more transparent, which is why back in August or whenever it passed, you got a ton of emails saying, "Oh, we've updated our privacy policy," because they had to, and then they had to tell everyone to update their privacy policy under the EU law. So part of it is more transparency, and part of it is just governments like the EU putting regulations. I don't think the US is ever going to. Because the problem is it's all these lawmakers, and this is a problem in the EU too, that it's all like 60, 70-year-old guys. They have no idea how the internet works.
I know.
Like, strong questions. One of the congressmen asked Mark Zuckerberg how he made money. Like, because he's like, "Oh, Facebook is free, so how do you make money?" And all he had to say was like, "Oh yeah, we sell ads, sir." You guys did like no research at all going into thing.
Sometimes I consider myself like that, not knowing how the internet works at all, especially in AP Computer Science Principles.
Yeah, but you wouldn't learn anything from that anyway.
But I do think that there should be a lot of transparency. I think Do you remember? I'm starting to get like remnants. Do you remember like the whole Edward Snowden thing?
Yeah, and that completely dropped off. Like,
yeah,
I watched a movie about it too. Snowden, yeah,
with Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah, there's another one, Citizen 4. I didn't watch that one, but I heard that one was better because that was like an actual documentary. Yeah, but the Snowden movie was good. I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, people. That's different. That's kind of different though because it's the government doing it, which not that it's okay. I think it's.
So do you?
Yeah, you can ask him.
I was just thinking, like, do you think it could ever reach a point where the line between the big companies, because you can even see it in like Trump's cabinet and the way the Republican Party is looking now, and how it's kind of always been. It's always kind of been dominated by the big corporations, you know, and with the big corporations being the tech companies now. Do you think there could be that fine line where we're talking about them taking all this data? Do you think not only using it to benefit themselves, but then also maybe passing that data along to the federal government?
Yeah, right now, I don't think the government is working with, like, they're not working with Google to spy on you. They can spy on you on their own time. Because remember that case with the San Bernardino shooter and his iPhone? Mm-hmm. Apple refused to open the phone for the FBI. And eventually they got it anyway because, of course, the FBI could open the phone. Mm-hmm. But they asked Apple to unlock it, and Apple said no. And then recently in Australia, they passed some like anti-encryption law, which I don't really know how it works, but it basically like basically requires companies who operate in Australia to give them backdoor encryption keys, which is a terrible idea because once there's a backdoor, anyone can get it, not just the governments. But I don't know if they could, I guess, start using companies to surveil on people, but they don't really need to because all they have to do is pass laws pretending to be like under the guise of national security, like the Patriot Act, and just pass laws saying that, hey, we're doing this for your safety, which is why we're installing cameras all over the place in the streets, in your schools, wherever, and just say they're doing that to make people safe.
Yeah. I just, because we were gonna talk, like planning on talking about the growth of the tech companies, and I was thinking because with Trump's cabinet, something I've noticed, and maybe it's just me being like less and less naive, but I'm starting to see like a fine line. Like Donald Trump became president, you know, businessman. He ran on the platform that he's a businessman, and you're seeing this like kind of line starting to get more and more like invisible between the corporations and the government. And I think that's where a real problem lies. Is even though you said like the government could be able to like spy on us on their own time, I think with the fear I was talking about with Amazon, you know, online grocery shopping. That's something that's gonna be the future. People are gonna order their groceries online.
Right.
All their groceries online. You know, Amazon's even giving those drones to drop off their groceries. You know, so then
so actually, speaking of that, I don't mean to go too much tangent, but I actually recently went to the Amazon store in DC, which is like, it's like a bookstore. It's in Georgetown, and it used to be, it's like ironic. It's like in the same street as the old Barnes & Noble was before they closed. And it's pretty cool. You just walk in, you can grab a book from the shelf, and you bring up to the person up front, and you just scan your Amazon app on your phone, and you buy the book. So you don't have to get your card or anything. You scan your phone, and you just walk out with the book. It's a cool store. I mean, yeah, it's cool. It's not much to say. But you can continue talking about your government thing. Yeah,
so, you know, especially Jeff Bezos being here in D.C., it's not unreasonable for, like, something to go on behind the scenes where they're both profiting off all the data simultaneously, you know, with each other. That's just, like, a fear I have. And then and I feel like I sound kind of like a conspiracy theorist and, like, a loon. But once they, you know, reach that point, then it's like, man, like Amazon's controlling everything we're buying, and then they're with the government, which controls kind of everything else. So
yeah, I don't really have that fear specifically for tech companies because there have always been large corporations in the U.S. and they've always been involved in the government, right? Standard Oil, Rockefeller, or like United Fruit Company, Banana Republics, and the United Fruit Company is a good example of company that's owning countries because they like ran like Nicaragua and Guatemala under dictatorship. Yeah. And then even now, these countries are still struggling with dictatorships because because United Fruit Company and all those other guys were there. For the tech companies specifically, I don't think that like, I mean, there's a thin line, but like the CEO of Google isn't going to like simultaneously hold that and the presidency at the same time. Yeah, sure, these guys are in the pockets, can be in the pockets of big tech companies, but like, I don't think like I said before, the U.S. government doesn't need Google to spy on people. They can spy on people whenever they want. And they don't need Google's information is about collecting information relevant to their ads, right? They'll look at what you're shopping. The U.S. government, unless you're buying like bombs. They don't really care what you're buying because they're not trying to target ads at you. They're just trying to watch whatever you're doing and make sure, or they're saying they're trying to make sure that you're not committing terrorist acts.
I feel like my stance on the whole internet privacy thing is like a little more libertarian in the sense that.
So you're scared the government's going to watch you as opposed to companies are going to watch you?
Yeah.
So how would you propose stopping companies then from doing it then?
I think what they did in the EU is
but then that's more government regulation, isn't
it? Yeah, but I don't know. It brings up like kind of a twist in my argument. But I think that you could pass a law where it's kind of restricting the access that you can get from like the routes the companies can go to and like what the companies can actually like take, and maybe like we could put like a cap on the amount of like data they could take in. I realize that could hinder like some things, but like cap or like a restriction.
Yeah, I mean the problem is people making these laws, like what do you cap? They don't. They definitely don't know. They don't work in a tech company, and even if you put caps, they could just find ways around it, like pretend they're not or record some other data. So it's hard. I think that more government regulation in these tech companies are good because these companies are running wild with their market dominance and surveillance of people. Not that governments are completely devoid or like absolved of all their surveillance, but I think it's particularly a problem with these giant tech companies.
Yeah. Do you think, and this is kind of a topic I want to segue, is, Amazon's coming to DC, right? And did we talk about this?
Oh, we brought this up, but we haven't brought it up since they pulled out of New York.
Yeah.
We should talk about that.
Yeah.
So they, obviously, people should know that they had this thing back in the summer where they announced that we're gonna open a new HQ too, and we want your city to tell us like why we should move there.
And everyone was throwing taxes.
Yeah, and everyone has basically like playing cities off of each other, seeing who.
It's like The Bachelor.
Yeah. Seeing who would give the most corporate welfare.
Chicago,
to Amazon.
You don't get a rose. Sorry.
And I mean, these guys know what they're doing, and I think that Amazon knew from the beginning where they're going to move. Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post, and he has a house here in Northern Virginia, and he has houses in New York too. So he knew from the beginning where he was going to move. The whole point of this thing was just to see how much money he could get out of DC or Northern Virginia or New York or any of these places. Just an experiment to see like if it would work if you ever wanted to open HQ3. So in the end, he decides on Long Island City, New York, and here in Arlington, Virginia. And what happens is in New York, people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and all the other guys are complaining that...
There was the one guy, I forget his name, that was like kind of the last domino to fall. It was the one guy, he's like a state rep in New York. Not like a federal rep. And he got elected, and then that's when they pulled out. Because he was like very like staunch in his views against Amazon moving there. But go back to what you're saying.
Yeah, people like AOC and the guy you're talking about were saying like, this is $3 billion you could use for infrastructure and stuff like that. So, and then people started protesting, and then Amazon eventually pulled out. I don't know if they might have also been planning on pulling out to begin with, because Amazon not really known to push over to people complaining about stuff, because people complain about Amazon all the time.
Yeah. I was complaining about Amazon like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, but you're not that important. But like their workers go on strikes. 7 people listen to our podcast. I think heard from that, but no, but people, so I guess they bent to pressure or something, and they eventually pulled out in New York. And then, I think they called a lot of politicians bluffs, because I feel like a lot of politicians in New York were talking for the sake of talking to appeal to some of their constituents. So like, Amazon is taking all our infrastructure money, which is why you should vote for me, and I'll help you. When in the back of their mind, they knew Amazon was going to stay. Yeah. And then now Amazon called their bluff, and then now they're kind of stuck. But I think there are definitely some genuine politicians who are mad about that, and mad that their city was giving billions of dollars to Amazon when they paid no taxes last year or whatever. Yeah. So, I mean, there's definitely an argument to be had. As of now, they're still moving to Arlington. So, and
that's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I don't think it's as big a deal as some people are making it out to be. Cause
I don't think it's going to change. Arlington's already, like, expensive as hell.
Yeah, people were, I mean, like, there's reports in the news how people are, like, speculators are gobbling up houses, like, buying them for like way overvalue, so all the housing prices are rising, especially around Crystal City, which is where they're moving. But I remember like when they announced it back in, I don't even know what month it was, but it was
like over the summer, right?
No, was it over summer?
I think I don't know.
No, when their final announcement though, that they're moving to Arlington. It was we were in school, so it was definitely like in the.
It was
fall.
definitely like in the beginning, probably around September.
Yeah, but anyway, so when they announced it, people were like, "Oh no, Amazon's how are we gonna fill it? How are we gonna like we can barely fill the schools now, or not barely fill the schools are overflowing.
Mm-hmm.
So like, how are we gonna find the space for all these kids? But it's 25,000. It's 25,000 people. So even if we assume that all 25,000 people are moving in here, that's not that many people. And even if they have like families, so it's like really like 100,000 people. That's not a lot
Not
of
all of
people
them are going to live in Arlington.
Yeah, they're not obviously not.
Yeah, people
they're not going to be able to afford to live in Arlington at this rate.
Yeah.
But that's not a lot of people, and they're probably pulling from a lot of the local pool of workers anyway. So some of these guys already live here.
Aren't they also putting an office in Nashville? Isn't that what they said?
Oh yeah, I think they were doing something else. I mean, they already have a ton of offices around. They have a ton of offices out in Dulles now too. Anyway.
Or like, because I remember the article I read. It said pulls out of New York will maintain like projects to build in Northern Virginia and Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Nashville, Tennessee is like not their main HQ two. I think it's HQ two.
Like a side HQ two.
Yeah, HQ 2.5 or something.
Yeah, but yeah, I think it's not going to have that big of an impact. I think it may actually have more of a positive impact. Maybe
it
could like bring employment.
I mean, it'll bring people in, and that's more tax money that Arlington can spend.
Mm-hmm.
But
because it's not like they don't have enough to spend already.
Yeah,
they built a $1 million bus stop.
A bus stop? Oh yeah, I do remember reading that.
On Columbia Pike. It's a nice bus stop. It's quality.
Oh, it
bus
better
stop.
Be nice. Yeah,
yeah,
$1 million.
You can charge your phone there, and it's glass, but like.
I mean, and in Columbia Pike. Well, I guess that's going to be where Amazon's moving. In South
and you know where like kind of down by like Knock. You know where that is?
No, I have no idea.
Like by like Drew School. Not like all the Shirlington. That's the place.
Well, yeah, it's south side of Arlington. Well,
yeah,
it's gonna be nice once Amazon moves there, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't think Amazon should be getting these as much corporate welfare as they are. They're basically getting free government handouts, and they're not paying any money back. So they're just taking money and then not giving it back. I mean, they're indirectly giving it back because workers pay income tax, but like whatever, they're getting money for free from the government.
They should be giving a little bit back.
Yeah, and they're playing cities off of each other, and they know what they're doing. So.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. I think Amazon, it's gonna bring employment for Arlington. The thing I'm excited about is I think it could bring more like name recognition to Arlington, you know, especially if that's now their only HQ2 they're building.
Right, Arlington did it for the clout. That's what it was.
Yeah, Arlington clout, getting that Arlington like Amazon clout, but also like. There's gonna be a impact like on local society. I think the people that are moving, they're gonna want to like use house cleaners. Gives house cleaners jobs. They're gonna eat like food at the restaurants. Buy the groceries.
Well, there's this one thing where like in Seattle, in the Amazon headquarters, all these restaurants are like going out of business because they were expecting Amazon workers to like go out and eat at their restaurants, but like Amazon's like the Google HQ where they have just a ton of food inside, and that workers don't really leave the Amazon HQ during the day. So all these restaurants that popped up after Amazon started expanding in Seattle eventually had to shut down because they weren't getting as much business as they thought they would get. So I mean, there's a lot of speculation going on, people buying up houses and doing all this stuff, but I don't really know how much it's going to change.
It's definitely this house we're in. Like, take a look around my house, Gabe. How much money do you think this house is worth?
Right now, or when you bought it?
Right now.
Right now, it's probably like 700.
900,000.
Oh man.
Yeah. So that's another thing. I guess for the people that already live in Arlington.
Yeah, I mean, when did you buy this house?
2004.
Yeah. So,
I didn't buy it. My parents.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely it's a good thing, and you guys should hold on to this because it's going to keep going up in value. Mm-hmm. My parents are looking at houses now too in Arlington, and they're like 1.6 or 1.7 million.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
And not even that huge. So like, I don't know what they're going to do. Arlington needs to continue building up more, like, apartment buildings or something to house.
They need to go up. Arlington's gonna become like an urban city.
It's already
like really urban.
Especially, yeah, and you might not see it as much as I do because I live in Roslyn, but in Roslyn there's a ton of high rises going up right now, and I've lived in the apartment I lived in since like 2001, and when they bought it was 250, and now it's probably close to $1 million or something, so it's definitely been going up. And my parents are planning on keeping it too. Mm-hmm. So, and it's only going to continue to go up. So Arlington needs to not get in the problem that other cities face, like San Francisco, where like they're just stuck because they don't want to demolish any of the old stuff, but they don't want to build any new houses either.
I don't think there's that much old stuff.
Yeah, luckily we don't have that much. Well, the problem is that there's stuff like the Arlington Cemetery. Yeah. They recently expanded that a couple months ago. Like,
oh, that's not going anywhere.
Yeah, but they need to stop expanding that. Like, I get it.
You kind of have to if you're gonna keep burying more and more people there.
Yeah, but I don't want to. I get it that you want to honor your soldiers and that being buried in Arlington is like one of the highest honors you can have, I guess. But like, there's a point where we just have to stop putting people there and move.
Or like doubling people up.
We should just reserve Arlington for like big names, not just. Yeah. And I feel like, or even just move it because we need the space now, and it's getting really expensive to just have a huge cemetery, especially in like the middle of the nation's capital. I mean, obviously not in DC, but like as DC and the metro area expands, the cemetery is just some huge space being taken up for nothing. Yeah, I mean, not for nothing basically.
Yeah. Imagine how much that land is probably worth, though.
Yeah, and it's near where Amazon's going to move now in South Arlington, so it's definitely worth a lot now.
Have you seen like the designs for Amazon's headquarters?
No, I haven't.
Have they released any?
I don't think so.
But I wonder what that's going to look like.
I mean, right now it's probably just be a bunch of boring office buildings. I can't imagine too much because right now Crystal City is literally just like a ghost of empty office buildings that are no one's taking them up. Mm-hmm. So they're lucky Amazon moved there because otherwise it would just be. Just sitting there doing nothing. And I shouldn't be calling Crystal City. It's National Landing now.
National Landing. I don't like that.
That's a terrible name.
National Landing?
But then
it makes it sound like I guess the airport is there.
Yeah, the airport is there. It's a terrible...
The plane's
It's a bad name, but so is Crystal City. Crystal City is such a generic name.
Yeah.
I like it just because we've been here.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, it's not a great name. And National... The airport's not even called National. That's called Ronald Reagan now.
Yeah.
But people in DC like to call it National.
National. I've heard it referred to as National, yeah. But, I don't know. Yeah, National Landing. That's pretty terrible name.
That's pretty...
Do you have any, like... What else could they call it? They could have held, like, a name the city.
Area. That's what we need more of. Amazon contests.
Yeah.
They probably would have named it Amazon, too, or something like that.
No, I'm not even saying Amazon. I'm saying, like, polled the people in Arlington. Like, they'll do that with, like, professional sports teams.
Yeah.
When they come to town.
You can't just trust the people to make that decision. Because then you end up with stuff like the Bodie McBoatface vote, where the British National, whatever, atmosphere, or Arctic, like, administration asked, hey, name our boat for us. And they were expecting, like, names like Sir David Attenborough, and they got Bodie McBoatface. They eventually did name it Sir David Attenborough, like SS whatever, or HMS Sir David Attenborough. But the submarine on the boat was called Bodie McBoatface.
Bodie McBoatface. So, yeah.
They got something. But, yeah, I don't know. You can't really trust
That's like D's nuts.
Yeah, you look at stuff like 9/11 was fake or something, like Hitler or something, whatever.
Yeah, I think even if 9/11 was fake, they'd have to... put the kibosh on that.
it's the will of the people. They have to.
Amazon building our new HQ and 9/11 was fake. Dick Cheney made money off the Iraq War. Jet fuel can't melt steel beams. Arlington, Virginia.
Yeah, I don't know. But going back to what we were originally talking about with the whole protests against Amazon moving in. I don't really want them to move in, but they are going to move in. And I guess it will help. I mean, I guess as someone who is related to property owners in Arlington, I will benefit from Amazon moving in, but it goes against what I believe in, which is I don't believe in multi-billion-dollar. Actually, they might even be at $1 trillion now. $1 trillion companies like Amazon shouldn't be getting checks from the government, basically.
Mm-hmm. Amazon could be their own country if they wanted to.
They could. It's stuff. I mean, you see maps like Jeff Bezos' net worth compared to like GDP. He's like higher net worth than like a ton of countries' GDPs. Yeah. They could really just like. They could do like what it's called like Sealand off of like the UK.
Sealand off of the UK.
The oil barge.
The like platform,
Yeah, and just do whatever they want there, and they could start like have their own like CIA or something. And
Sealand was giving out like passports.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And like IDs. But they're like in circulation.
When she was trying to stop that, like the EU was trying to they had like police sent out or something.
Yeah, I don't like. Or do you remember Liberland? Like Libertarian Utopia.
Yeah, where was that though?
River. That was like Danube
because
Serbia and
the
Croatia.
river meanders, but the border didn't change. So it was left with some unclaimed land.
Unclaimed land, yeah. And the guy, it was this Czech dude who wanted to start this Libertarian Utopia, and he he was like, hey, if anyone wants to come live in my country, Liberland. And I think we should do a whole episode on micronations.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
Because that's like a topic I'm very passionate about.
All right, yeah.
But he was like, yeah, if you guys want to move to Liberland, like, just come in, man. I'm taking, like, petitions, open land, like, my new country, great. And so there's 200,000 people that signed up slated to move in this, like, 1/10 of a, like, square mile land, like.
Oh yeah, and whenever the river moves, he's gonna have to migrate his whole country.
Yeah, but and the Croatian government was like, nah, dude, you can't do this.
Well, yeah, because they already have enough people claiming land willy-nilly in the Balkans, so.
But I think, like, that'd be the big ballsy move for Amazon.
To make their own country?
Yeah.
Or they'd make it just so they could have a tax. They could just buy another country right now and just keep using it for their tax havens.
Yeah.
Like wherever they're moving now, Andorra, Monaco, whatever.
Mm-hmm. But, probably like Ireland. Ireland's a big one.
Yeah, and they recently actually, I don't know if it was Amazon or some other country, or it might have been Google, but they were forced to repay like Ireland. The EU forced them to repay Ireland some of their taxes because they weren't paying as much as they claimed they were paying.
They could move to Hungary. Hungary now has the lowest corporate tax in Europe.
Really?
9%. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're gonna have to move. They can't move to the UK because the UK is about to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, I think Amazon, like, you have all this money, all this influence, all this power. You might as well just like
use it.
Put your balls on the table and be like, boys, we're going to our own country, Amazon nation. Pay no taxes, control everything there. You know.
Yeah, I don't know how well that'd go down with
the UN and
the
world.
To have your country, you have to be recognized by people.
Yeah.
At least someone. So they have to.
You don't think anyone would recognize the country? Amazon?
Who would recognize them?
They could like probably just implement themselves into like
yeah, they start
Botswana.
Start another banana republic in like Africa or something.
Yeah,
that's what China's doing. They're just investing in all these African countries, and then just putting them in debt, so like they have to do whatever China says.
Yeah. That's crazy. I could see Amazon doing that though. It's not too hard to believe. At some point in time, it would grow so big, or Google or any company even.
Yeah.
Would grow so big to the point where they could like take over a country. I think with the U.S. there's so many big companies there, but like a big company from a country.
But even like in the U.S. specifically, the companies relative to the U.S. aren't even that big. Like in Korea, Samsung makes up like 1/4 of the country's GDP, so they are in a position, and they don't just make phones, they make TVs, washing machines, TVs, and they make tanks too, and boats. So it's like they're not gonna take it. They could take over the country with their tanks and their smart fridges or whatever too. Like, so they make a ton of stuff, and they have a ton of influence on South Korea. So if you want to talk about like governments and like blurring the line between governments and companies, South Korea is a great example of a country that's being dominated by a few.
Or Russia.
Yeah, Russia, but Russia seems to have a lot of companies that are owned by like the state.
Yeah,
that's more like state capitalism, whereas South Korea is like some like Ayn Rand style capitalism, which is going crazy and taking over the government. Yeah.
So, any last comments, Gabe?
No. If you have any feedback, go to email it to funnybusiness49@gmail.com or comment on the YouTube video at DBK Studios. Yeah.
Follow us on Spotify.
Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, get YouTube. Our podcast on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we'll probably be back at you next week with a podcast, potentially about geography. You know, we'll narrow it down to some other topics. And feel free to comment any suggestions for topics. This topic, not everything we talked about, but automation and like AI and the growth of technology was actually suggested to us by our friend Forrest Benjamin Hare. So shout out to him. Good dude. Nice guy. Yeah. Any last words, Gabe?
No, like us on iTunes.
Yeah. Peace out, guys.